Hollywood, California, June 1972. A casting office on Sunset Boulevard. Chuck Norris sits in a waiting room with 15 other actors when the director walks past, looks at him and says to his assistant, "Get me a real American for this part, not some Oriental guy." What happens in the next 4 minutes doesn't start Chuck's acting career. It ends the director's career and creates a Hollywood legend about the day Chuck Norris taught a racist what American actually means. The production is a low-budget action film, working title Desert Strike, about Vietnam veterans fighting corruption back home. They're looking for the lead, ex-soldier tough guy, hero type. The casting call said Caucasian male, 25-40, athletic build, military background preferred. Chuck Norris checks every box except the one that isn't written but is assumed, white. The waiting room is standard Hollywood cattle call. Folding chairs, stale coffee, actors in leather jackets trying to look tough, headshots clutched in sweaty hands, everyone hoping this is the break, the role that changes everything. Chuck sits quietly in the corner, not trying to network, not trying to impress, just waiting. He's wearing simple clothes, jeans, white t-shirt, nothing flashy. At 32 years old, he's already a 6-time world karate champion, owns 3 successful martial arts schools, trained celebrities including Steve McQueen and Priscilla Presley, but Hollywood doesn't care about any of that. Hollywood cares about one thing: can you sell tickets? And in 1972, Hollywood's convinced that Americans won't pay to watch an action hero who looks like Chuck Norris. Chuck's not naive. He knows how this works. He's been to enough auditions, heard enough polite rejections, enough "you're very talented but not quite right for this particular role," euphemisms that really mean you're not white enough. His agent told him not to bother with this one, told him the director, Marcus Blake, is old school, traditional, won't cast anyone who doesn't fit his narrow vision of what an American hero looks like. But Chuck came anyway because he's stubborn, because someone has to be first, because change doesn't happen when you stop trying. The door opens, Marcus Blake walks out. 50s, expensive suit, slicked back hair, that Hollywood producer swagger, clipboard in hand, assistant trailing behind taking notes. He scans the room, looking at the actors, assessing them like cattle at auction. His eyes pass over Chuck, pause, narrow, then move on. He points to 3 actors, big guys, square jaws, blonde hair, blue eyes, the American hero template Hollywood's been using since John Wayne. He tells them to follow him to the audition room, then turns to his assistant, doesn't lower his voice, doesn't care who hears, says, "Sarah, next time screen these better. I said I need real Americans for this role, not some Oriental guy taking up space." The room freezes. Every head turns to Chuck. Some actors look uncomfortable, some look away, some look curious to see how Chuck will react. Chuck doesn't react, not visibly. His face stays neutral, calm. No anger, no embarrassment, just that same quiet presence. But inside, something hardens. He's felt this his whole life. The assumption that his face makes him foreign, makes him un-American, despite being born in Oklahoma, despite serving in the Air Force, despite bleeding red, white, and blue. He's tired of it. Sarah, the assistant, looks mortified. She's mid-20s, clearly new to Hollywood, hasn't learned yet that casual racism is just part of the business, that people like Marcus Blake say things like that and nobody challenges them because they have power, they control jobs, they can end careers with a phone call. She starts to apologize to Chuck, but Chuck holds up a hand, gives her a small smile, says it's not her fault. The 3 chosen actors follow Blake toward the audition room. Chuck stands up. Sarah says, "Mr. Norris, you don't have to." Chuck says quietly, "Yes, I do." He walks toward the audition room. Sarah tries to stop him, says Blake won't see him, says it'll just make things worse. Chuck says, 4 minutes. Give me 4 minutes. Chuck walks into the audition room. It's a standard setup, long table with Blake and 2 other producers, a camera on a tripod, tape marks on the floor for blocking. The 3 chosen actors are getting instruction on the scene they'll be performing. Blake looks up, sees Chuck, his face flashes annoyance, says, "You weren't called. This is a closed audition." Chuck says calmly, "I was in the waiting room. I fit your description. Military background, athletic, right age range. I deserve a chance to audition." Blake laughs, not a nice laugh, says, "You fit most of the description, but this is an American action hero. The audience needs to believe this guy's from Texas or Nebraska, not Beijing." Chuck says, "I'm from Ryan, Oklahoma, population 900. I served in the U.S. Air Force. I have 3 martial arts schools in California. I've trained some of the biggest stars in Hollywood. I'm as American as anyone in this room." Blake waves this away, says, "Look, I'm sure you're very talented at whatever it is you do, but this role requires a specific look. American audiences have expectations. They want heroes who look like them." Chuck says, "What do they look like?" Blake gestures to the 3 blonde actors, says, "Like them, like Americans." Chuck nods slowly, says, "I have a proposition. Give me 4 minutes. Let me audition. If after 4 minutes you still think I can't play an American hero, I'll leave and never come back." but if I change your mind, you give me a fair shot at this role. Blake is about to refuse, but one of the other producers, younger guy, says, Marcus, 4 minutes. What's the harm? If he's terrible, we have a funny story. If he's good, maybe we found something unexpected. Blake sighs dramatically, says fine, 4 minutes, but don't waste his time. He tosses Chuck a script, says, page 23, the confrontation scene. You're Jake, the veteran. You've just discovered your former commanding officer is corrupt. You're confronting him. Show me what you got, Karate Kid. Chuck takes the script, reads the scene once, about 30 seconds. It's standard action movie dialogue, tough guy lines. You betrayed us. Men died because of you. That kind of thing. But Chuck sees something deeper in it, sees a character who's not just angry, but hurt, betrayed by someone he trusted, fighting for justice despite personal cost. Chuck understands that. He's fought for respect his whole life despite people dismissing him. Chuck hands the script back, says he doesn't need it. He's got it. Blake rolls his eyes, says you memorized 2 pages in 30 seconds. Chuck says, I remember what matters. Blake tells the camera operator to roll, tells Chuck to begin when ready. Chuck steps to the mark, closes his eyes for 3 seconds. When he opens them, he's not Chuck Norris anymore. He's Jake, the betrayed soldier, the man fighting for his dead friends, the man who won't back down despite the cost. His whole body language changes, shoulders set different, jaw tight, eyes hard. He starts speaking. The dialogue comes out natural, not performed but lived. Chuck isn't acting the lines, he's feeling them, channeling every time he was dismissed for his appearance, every time someone assumed he wasn't American enough, every time he had to prove himself despite having already earned his place. The anger in the scene isn't manufactured, it's real. The hurt is real. The determination is real. Blake leans forward without realizing it. The other producers have stopped looking at their notes. The camera operator forgets to check focus because he's just watching. Chuck moves through the scene with complete commitment, no self-consciousness, no awareness of being judged. For 2 minutes, he is this character, completely, totally. He finishes the scene. Silence. The room is completely silent for 5 seconds. Then Blake says, almost whispering, cut. Chuck immediately relaxes, becomes himself again, that quiet presence. He asks, 4 minutes. Did I change your mind? Blake stares at Chuck for a long moment. Something's happening behind his eyes, some assumption breaking apart, some old belief being challenged. Finally, he says, I wasn't expecting that. Chuck says, you weren't expecting an American. Blake has the decency to look uncomfortable. Says, I wasn't expecting someone who could embody this character better than anyone I've seen today. The younger producer says, Marcus, he's right for this role. You know he's right for it. Blake nods slowly, says to Chuck, where did you train? Acting, I mean. Chuck says, I didn't, but I've spent my life fighting for things people said I couldn't have. This character, I understand him, better than any acting class could teach me. Then Chuck says something that changes the room. Says, you called me Oriental. You assumed I wasn't American because of my face. But my father was Irish, German, Cherokee. My mother was Irish, Cherokee. I was born in Oklahoma, raised during the Depression, served my country in uniform. I bleed the same as you. But you saw my face and decided I was foreign. That's your limitation, not mine. And it's why you almost missed the best person for this role. Blake sits back. The other producers are watching him, waiting to see how he responds. Blake could get defensive, could justify, could make excuses. But he's been in Hollywood 30 years, knows talent when he sees it, knows when he's wrong. He says quietly, you're right, I apologize. That comment was ignorant and inexcusable. Chuck nods, says, apology accepted. Now do I get a callback, or are you still looking for someone more American? Blake actually laughs, says, you just made the 3 guys in the waiting room irrelevant. The role's yours if you want it. Chuck says, I want to earn it. Let me do another scene. Compete fairly against the others. Blake says, you already earned it. But if you insist, Chuck insists. Spends the next 20 minutes reading different scenes, showing range, proving this wasn't a fluke. By the end, there's no question. Chuck isn't just right for the role. He's the only one who could do it justice. But then something unexpected happens. Blake offers Chuck the role, but Chuck has a condition. Says he'll take it if Blake hires an Asian American actor for the supporting role of Jake's war buddy. Says if this film is going to show real America, it should show that America isn't just one face, one color, one background. Real America is everyone who fights for it. Blake agrees. The film gets made. Desert Strike releases in 1973. Doesn't become a blockbuster but does respectable business. Gets good reviews. Chuck's performance gets noticed. More importantly, it proves something. American heroes can look different than John Wayne, can have Cherokee heritage and a face that reflects Asian ancestry and still be authentically, completely American. Marcus Blake, to his credit, changes. Not overnight, not completely, but he starts casting more diversely, starts questioning his assumptions, starts understanding that his definition of American was too narrow. He and Chuck become friends, not close but respectful. 2 men who both learned something in that audition room. Years later, Blake is interviewed about his career, about the changing face of Hollywood.
He tells the story of Chuck Norris walking into that audition, of 4 minutes that changed his entire understanding of what American looks like. He says he's ashamed of the comment he made, grateful Chuck didn't walk away, grateful for the lesson wrapped in that performance. Chuck goes on to become one of the biggest action stars of the 1980s and 90s. Walker Texas Ranger runs for 9 seasons, Chuck playing the most American hero imaginable, Texas Ranger, defender of justice, embodiment of American values. And nobody, absolutely nobody, questions whether he looks American enough for the role, because by then, America's definition expanded to include him. So here's the question. Who are you excluding based on assumptions? What talent are you missing because someone doesn't fit your template? What could you learn if you gave people 4 minutes to prove your assumptions wrong? Because Marcus Blake almost missed Chuck Norris, almost let racism cost him the perfect actor, almost let his limited definition of American prevent him from finding an American hero. 4 minutes changed his mind. 4 minutes proved that American isn't a look, it's a spirit. 4 minutes taught a director that the strongest heroes are the ones who have to fight for recognition, who have to prove themselves despite prejudice, who embody American values by refusing to let anyone tell them they're not American enough. Chuck Norris gave Marcus Blake 4 minutes. Those 4 minutes changed everything. Who deserves your 4 minutes? And what might you discover if you give them the chance to prove you wrong?